Bravo bosses. This is the Bravo Investigator Podcast. I'm your host, Dana. And today on our Monday Reality Roundup, we are talking about Love is Blind, The Real Housewives of Atlanta, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and The Traitors. And before we get into it, just so you know, today's episode is audio only, but you can watch the audio version on YouTube. Love you, BBs. Let's get into it. Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a great weekend and a great start to their week. And my standard apologies for getting this episode out a little bit late. I'm actually recording today on my lunch break. Over the weekend, I recorded like 3 episodes, so it was really exhausting and I really needed just to decompress a little bit. So I'm recording now. And I figured because we actually don't have a lot of topics today, I figured there would be more than enough time for me to record it on my lunch break. So this episode will be a little bit shorter. And I always say that. Whenever I say that, it ends up being the longest episode ever. So we'll see how it goes. But today we're going to start with Love is Blind. And I just did a recap of episodes 10 to 11 on Saturday. And then on Wednesday, I think we have episode 12, which should be the rest of the weddings. And then I guess the following Wednesday will be like the live reunion. I don't know if they'll do it live. They had that one snafu where they were unable to get it to air live. But that should be the end of it. I am excited for Love is Blind to wrap up, not because it's not my favorite show, because it is my favorite show. But I'm really trying to do it as like its own separate entity for the podcast. I'm not trying to loop it in with other recaps or other things because I really want you guys to know that I love the love shows and I really want to break them down and analyze them properly. But that being said, it's just like another thing to do when I have just like started this job. So I am looking forward to it being over. The Traitors is over. The Valley Persian style is over. I did a recap of the finale episode yesterday on Sunday, along with Southern Charm and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. But yeah, just in order for me to continue to figure out how I'm going to do this podcast going forward, shows got to stop coming, at least for a minute, right? So I'm looking forward to the end of Love is Blind for that reason. But I am just so curious as to what's going to happen here. And maybe before we get into our Love is Blind tea, maybe let's just like talk about like what we think. I think Emma and Mike, we saw episode 11 end with him saying, or sorry, with her saying yes. I think he's going to say no. Listen, I just listened to her today on Emma on the Love to See It podcast, and she kind of gave me the impression that they might still be together. She seemed happy. She seems to still like him. There didn't seem to be any animosity in her voice. But in watching the episodes, I thought he was going to say no because he asked her to confirm that she will have children, and she didn't do that at the altar. So he could say no. They could end up being the kind of couple that dates for a bit and are still together. Who knows? Amber and Jordan, I think they are both going to say yes at the altar. And I do hope that it works out for them. I really do. But I'll repeat what I said the other day about maybe this just isn't right for people who are single parents because there just isn't enough time to get to incorporate a new person into your kid's life in this expedited process. I mean, if they had the opportunity to just date and not get married and get to know each other and have Amber's daughter get to know Jordan, I feel like that would just make a lot more sense. But I do think they are going to say yes. Ashley and Alex, I think she's going to say yes. Like, even though this guy has come off as like a complete dingbat, liar, all of these things, based on the wedding dress fittings, it seemed like she was all in. She seemed 100% in to marrying this fraudulent fool. I think he might say no. We still haven't seen that scene come up yet that we saw like in the previews where he says something like, I wanted a brunette, brown-eyed girl. So I don't know where that comes up, but I assure you that they are no longer together, regardless of what happened at the altar. I feel pretty confident about that. Devonta and Brittany, I don't even think they went to the altar. I really don't, because if you look at the preview episode for the next like drop, you don't see them at all. I feel like the episode is going to open up with the two of them sitting on the couch with Devonta telling her that he doesn't love her and he's not attracted to her. And this is just not going to happen. And then do I have any other couples? I mean, Chris and Vic, they're obviously like goals meant to be, yada yada. But let's get into Devonta because his ex-girlfriend has spoken out, and it's my understanding that this girl dated him after Love is Blind. So this is something that she posted on Instagram. So she wrote, "My ex Devo is on Love is Blind, Ohio. I knew it from the beginning of our relationship. He lied about a lot, never made me feel secure in our relationship. He told me things about the show and who the people were, who they would end up with, and it's obvious he didn't end up with the woman he met on the show because he moved to Arizona and put himself on dating apps. It sucks trying to move on from someone who hurt you, and then you see his face in the public eye. He looks good on paper, but in reality, he's a liar, a cheater, and a really good talker. Oh, and he doesn't like black girls. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk." And then she also posted, "I had to hide our relationship. I thought I'd let everything air out. Tell me, does it ease your soul with how many lies you've told? Started dating in July and we broke up in December. I love seeing your post about being with someone new already. Or is it new? You fed me nothing but lies about how you had to work all of the time or whatever excuse you could come up with. My intuition never lied to me, but you sure did. I'm disgusted that I let you into my home and around my children just to find out that you were living another life with someone else. You're the definition of ick." Okay, wow. I mean, we thought we were dealing with bad guys when we were dealing with Chris and Alex, but Devonte, sir, like I just thought maybe he wasn't attracted to black women, which is like, okay, not great, but like, does it make him the worst person in the world? But like, apparently this guy's a cheater and he cheats on someone who had children, right? That just makes it even more fucked up. Now, he ended up responding to this girl and her statements. He spoke to a particular outlet. So it wasn't like on Instagram or anything, like he spoke to like the media. And he says, "This is the girl who keeps running her mouth about me, the one who texted me over 200 times in 3 days begging for me back. She is a miserable single mom who works at Chili's and thought I was her out. She should work on herself." And he also said, oh no, wait, that's the only thing that he said. So, like, that's just absolutely insane that that's his response to this. Like, I mean, you're saying that to the media that she's a miserable single mom who works at Chili's? Like, what is it with this cast this year and their concern about public perception of money and stuff, right? Like, do you think it makes you look good to call this woman a single mom who works at Chili's? Like, she's a miserable single mom. Why are you even calling out the idea that she is a single mom, right? That is something to be very proud of. So to call her a miserable single mom, it's just like douchey. Is it also douchey of her to come out to the internet and kind of call him out? Probably, right? We're all allowed to do what we want to do. And so in that vein, he's allowed to respond. I just like usually expect people who are in the public eye to have more decorum. Like you would think that he would have asked his PR rep on how to respond, but to say like she's a miserable single mom who works at Chili's, like, ugh, like that's just like not cute, sir. And it doesn't make you look good. Like I don't know who's gonna date you after that. It just wasn't cute. Now we had Jess on the Love to See It podcast today, and we didn't get a ton from her just because she pretty much put it all out there, right, on the season. But she said that she was very open with everyone in the pods about her political beliefs and being very liberal. And she said that she had to have a lot of tough conversations with people in the pods and ask questions like, "Are you a Trump supporter? Did you vote for Trump?" And she got a lot of answers that just didn't jive with her. And so she had to move on from a lot of people, but she knows what she wants and what she's looking for. She said she did ask Chris if he was a Trump supporter, but he ended up being like a complete liar, obviously. He didn't have social media at the time for her to check. And she mentioned how she wasn't just talking about him, but just speaking in general about how men will lie about even things like that, about even their political beliefs in an attempt to like get a girl, which is so fucked up. And it never even occurred to me. You would think that people are so hard and fast about their political beliefs that it wouldn't make sense to lie, right? Unless you're just looking for a hookup or something. But like, what what is anyone thinking when they're lying to a woman about their political beliefs? Because it's gonna come up. It's gonna come up. So good for her. She's doing amazingly well. And yeah, that guy just turned out to be the worst person on earth. I'm very curious to see if he will show up to the reunion. I hope he does. And I hope that people just ream him the fuck out, to be quite honest. Okay, let's move on to Alex because apparently that is not his real name. So his real name is Alec with a C, and his last name is like Fidel. He apparently changed his name, and you guys know how the internet does what it does, right? So I'm going to play you this clip from Kate Riccio. Shout out to her. She gives us a lot more context on Alex changing his name and probably his entire personality.
From Love is Blind has a podcast. And in this podcast, I learned that his name only became Alex Henderson in 2020. Yeah, he legally changed his name. So a lot of Reddit sleuths have been sleuthing and realized that Alex's name when he played soccer was Alec Farrell. But on Love is Blind, his name is Alex Henderson. So why is it different? Well, if you watch the first part of this recap, you'll know that Alex's biological father was not a part of his life, and he had a stepfather named John. Well, when Alex was a baby, John ended up legally adopting him, making his last name Farrell. But obviously, Alex and his stepfather, John, did not have a good relationship. He does not like John. So he said he wanted to reclaim his last name, which is Henderson. That's his biological father's last name. So in 2020, he legally changed his last name to Henderson. But he still doesn't explain how he went from Alec to Alex. Like, that is still a mystery to me. He does not talk about that.
Which is weird, right? It is so similar to your original name. Like, why change it? I understand the last name thing, but it is kind of weird that his first and last name are different, like different on Love is Blind than they were previously when he played soccer. I mean, that's literally an identity shift, right? Like you were apparently this really great soccer player under the name Alec Farrell, and now you're Alex Henderson on a completely different forum in a different media space, right? It feels sketchy. I'm sorry, it does. Listen, I am also somebody who changed their last name. I did it because I'm not going to tell you guys my OG last name, or even you guys don't even know my last name to begin with, but my real last name, people used to misspell it all the time. I don't want to give it away, but they used to equate it with something that was on a TV show. That was the only time anyone had ever heard anything similar to that name. So people used to always call me something that they had seen on TV, which wasn't correct. It's also a very, very Jewish last name. And I kind of hate the idea that a last name really like puts you in a box like that because I don't consider myself religiously Jewish. I consider myself more so agnostic. So I hate that like a last name can necessarily put you in a box where someone's like, oh, your last name, you're Jewish, right? And then when I was doing stand-up comedy when I was younger, people also always got the name wrong. And it would be like really embarrassing. Like a comedian would call you up on stage and be like, I'm introducing Dana, whatever. And I'm like, that's not my name. And then you have to like find the appropriate time to correct it, but while not embarrassing the comedian. And it also happened at work all the time, which was really weird. And it would happen with like other Jewish people, which was so bizarre. I'd be on like teleconference calls with lawyers who worked with me who had known me for years and would call me the wrong last name. And then the person on the other end of the call would be like, isn't her last name X? So it just became so incredibly frustrating to me that I ended up changing my last name. And what I ended up doing was cutting off the last three letters. And to me, it made it very easy to say. It felt like it flowed off the tongue much better. And it felt like a name that people knew. And I felt like with that, I didn't really ever have to deal with people mispronouncing or misspelling my name again. And ever since, it has been lovely. However, given the number of lies that this man has just told in general, I do find it completely sketchy that he has changed his entire name, right? Like, that's weird. It's weird. I feel like, or at least I hope some of this stuff comes up at the reunion because I'd love to hear. As I always say, one of my favorite parts of Love is Blind is the way that the internet sleuths just do their damn thing and find out all this information about these people. And that's what we end up sort of focusing on instead of the show sometimes, because let's face it, parts of the show can be boring. So we focus on all of that. And then it's kind of fun when it comes up at the reunion and they have to explain themselves, right? Okay, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. We're going to be talking about Kenya more because she's owing a hair spa landlord $87,000. That is a pretty penny. So I'm going to read you guys this article that came out from TMZ that says Real Housewives of Atlanta star Kenya Moore's hair salon was ordered to pay more than $80,000 in a battle over unpaid rent and utilities, TMZ has learned. According to court docs obtained by TMZ, a Georgia judge ordered the reality stars company More Vision Media to pay $43,988 by late February and another $43,988.67 by late March for a total of $87,976. The judge also ordered Kenya's company to pay around $5,500 a month in rent until or unless she ends up vacating. A couple of weeks after the judge made the decision, the landlord claimed Kenya's company failed to pay the first installment by the court's deadline and demanded possession of the property immediately. The court has yet to rule on the request. Kenya opened the Kenya Moore Hair Spa in Atlanta in 2024. The landlord of the location, Northland Chamblee LLC, sued the Real Housewives of Atlanta star in October 2025, alleging unpaid rent and utilities under the lease. The landlord alleges the hair spa ceased paying rent on the property in December 2024. Kenya's company denied the allegations. The reality stars businesses argued the landlord failed to make improvements to the property as requested. All right. I mean, this is interesting. It sounds like there's probably a lot more information that we don't have, because when I first see like you haven't paid your rent, it's like, girl, you got to pay your rent. You got to pay your rent. But then she's saying that there's certain improvements that were requested to be made. And so what I'm understanding, or what I think is being implied here, is that there's maybe issues to the property and that there was maybe an agreement that in exchange for improvements to the location, or sorry, maybe not in exchange, maybe there was an agreement that rent would not be paid until the improvements were made. Like, I feel like in a regular renter situation, if your landlord is not giving you the things that you require as part of your tenancy, like water, heat, I don't know, certain things like that. If they're not giving you the things that are part of that agreement, then you can refuse to pay rent. So I'm wondering if that's the situation here, if she's refusing to pay rent, especially because she has, what do you call it? She has lawyers, right? So I highly doubt that she's just going around not paying for things. That doesn't really make sense. I think it would make a lot more sense that the business is failing to keep up on their end of the agreement, and by virtue, she's not paying her rent. Now, I'm sure this will all be figured out in court, but I am very curious what the agreement was in advance. Okay, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I am very, very upset to announce that Denise Richards now has to pay Aaron Phypers spousal support. We talked about this last week, that he was asking for it. I was absolutely livid. I'm like, sir, get a job. Stop being the awful person that you are. Yada, yada, yada. But the judge has ordered it. So I'm going to read you guys this article from page 6. It says, Denise Richards' estranged husband, Aaron Phypers' request for temporary spousal support has been granted. In a major win for Phypers in court Thursday, Richards was ordered to pay her ex $5,000 a month, as well as $30,000 in attorney's fees. Judge Nicole Bershon clarified that the hefty sum will only be applied to the divorce proceedings, not to Pfeiffer's criminal case. The 53-year-old notably is facing 4 felony counts, 2 felony counts of injuring a spouse, and 2 felony counts of dissuading a witness by force of threat, which he has denied. Liar. The $30,000 will be paid in thirds, with the first $10,000 chunk due at the end of March. As for the monthly $5,000 bill, Bershon broke it down as $2,000 a month for Pfeiffer's rent, $1,000 for his car, $1,000 for food, and the rest for miscellaneous expenses. Pfeifers, who claimed during the hearing to have only $200 to his name, said the amount would certainly help, but he's taking things one day at a time. Certainly help? Wait. Richards muttered that she couldn't afford the bill when the decision was made, according to the California Post. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star 55 explained that she could barely pay her own attorney and had been blowing through everything she was making while married to Pfeifers between 2018 to 2025. She added that she has nothing invested, and her lawyer, Mark Gross, pointed out that the pretty extraordinary cost of caring for her 14-year-old daughter, Eloise, who has a rare chromosomal disorder, resulted in developmental delays. Gross also argued that victims of abuse shouldn't be required to support their abuser. Great point, referencing Richards being granted a permanent restraining order against Pfeifers in November 2025. Pfeifers' lawyer, however, pointed out that the Quantum 360 founder has yet to be convicted. Reps for Richard and Phypers have yet to respond to page 6 request for comment. The former couple called it quits last year when Richards reflecting on the painful year of letting go and truths being exposed via Instagram last month. As painful as it is, I'm so grateful for the clarity that Denise Richards and her Wild Things star wrote in January. Ugh. I hate the fact that she is an alleged victim of abuse in this situation, right? I understand the concept that those charges are still, up in the air. He hasn't been convicted yet. But the allegations, right? It's almost like, and this is the thing too, it's almost like accusing one of your parents of like abuse, but then as part of the custody agreement, you have to go stay with that parent every other weekend, right? It's just so fucking awful. I feel really bad for Denise. I guess this means that they didn't have a prenup, despite the fact that I've been covering this case for like months now. This is something that I should already know, but that is obviously part of the point here. He wouldn't be getting the spousal support otherwise, and I just feel like that's why it's just so important to protect yourself in advance of marriages, you guys, right? Like, we were having this conversation on Love is Blind, and people thought, or a lot of people did kind of side with Brittany in the Devonta situation, thinking that, it's inappropriate for him to ask for a prenup because it sort of implies that he thinks that she'll like take everything from him at some point. But that's not what it's about. It's about protecting yourself too. What if your ex turns out to be a scumbag who has all of these debts and all of these things? Like, you really have no idea. It is to protect you too, and to protect the money that you have earned and invested. Like, exactly this, right? He wants money because he feels like I helped her with her OnlyFans because I held the camera, I took the picture. And I understand that he no longer has his business Quantum 360, but as I've been saying for weeks, he can get another kind of job. And so a man who is fully capable of working, who has the intellect, who has the physical, mental, all the other kinds of capabilities to work, is choosing to take money from his wife instead. And it's just like, even at the end of the day, for him to be like, it's not much, but like, I'll see what I can do with it. It's like, sir, you don't need to spend $20,000 a month on clothes. All you wear is white t-shirts and jeans, right? Like, when I was unemployed, I really had to scale back. I had to eat once a day, and I wasn't trying to ask anyone else for money when I was fully capable of working. Has he applied for any jobs yet? Or is he spending all of his time and money on legal shit, right? Go get a job, Aaron Phypers. Go get a job. So I feel bad for Denise. Thank God that this is temporary, and hopefully he gets convicted soon so that she doesn't have to pay him anymore. I hope that that's sort of what happens here. In some other Real Housewives of Beverly Hills news, obviously Lisa Rinna has released her book recently. You better believe I'm going to talk about it. And book is good, you guys. Book is good, and it releases a lot of tea. Now, something that Lisa talked about in the book was her daughter Delilah's devastating health battle. So this is what she talked about in the book. She shared that Delilah Belle Hamlin had a serious battle with an autoimmune disorder called PANDAS, which stands for Pediatric Autoimmune Neuropsychiatric Disorders Associated with Streptococcal Infections. And she's had this for nearly a decade. It's a condition that causes sudden onset obsessive compulsive disorder triggered by an immune malfunction. Delilah was diagnosed at age 11. Rinna describes Delilah experiencing expansive panic attacks, screaming, yelling, and pounding on windows. She became unable to ride on the school bus, use elevators, or fly, and refused school unless her father, Harry Hamlin, stayed outside of her classroom for hours. Rinna would drive her around to self-soothe and stay with her at night during panic episodes, describing it as almost like she was possessed by the devil. She called it the worst time in her family's history. Delilah also suffered from mono, leaving her bedridden for over a month. Over the years, Rinna and Harry sought help from every medical doctor imaginable, including therapists and medical specialists. Rinna noted that their focus on Delilah left their youngest daughter, Amelia Gray, feeling a bit left out, often staying with a housekeeper or nanny in Inglewood. Delilah's struggles continued into her 20s, including 2 stints in rehab in 2018. She is now sober, which has helped with her anxiety and depression. In 2023, she shared on Instagram about silently battling autoimmune and chronic illness issues. Amelia, 24, also faces challenges, including an eating disorder as a teenager, but has since become a highly successful model, appearing on multiple Vogue covers and in campaigns for Valentino and Givenchy. So that is so insane. And, it sort of makes me think back to certain scenes with Delilah. Like there was a scene where she's sitting down with Sophia Umansky and she's talking about what kind of apartment she wants. Like on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, right? She's like, it needs to have a doorman. It can't be too low to the ground. I'm afraid of windows. Like there was a whole bunch of different kinds of stuff. I don't remember specifically, but she definitely talked a lot about, even when she went away to school, how much she missed her parents and how she was getting so much anxiety. She was having panic attacks, but she was also very much on the ball in that regard because I felt like whenever she talked about her issues, she always knew that she needed to go to therapy or what she needed to do next. She's like, either I need to get another place or I need to be home or I need to be on medication. So I think that makes a lot of sense considering she was diagnosed at 11, but this is not something that we knew. So when we just saw her on the show, we just saw her suffering through certain issues, but we just didn't really understand why. I can't even imagine as a parent kind of going through this because it's so different than what so many other parents go through, unless this is really common, which is just not something that I'm aware of. But just not even having necessarily other parents to relate to on this. I'm glad that she was diagnosed so early because I can't even imagine going through this as a parent and having absolutely no idea for probably years on end what's going on with your kid. But you kind of gotta give some credit here to Rinna and Harry for really like putting their all into their daughter's life and just being there for her, supporting her, doing absolutely everything in their power to support their kid. And I know that seems like obvious and every parent should and would, but I don't think my mom would. I really don't. But my mom's a narcissist and a bad person. But I'm just saying my dad would. My dad 100% would. My dad would be the kind of person who would stand outside the school for as long as I needed him to, right? And so I just want to say that, like, despite the person that Rinna can come off to be, it seems like she's a really good mom. We didn't get a ton of her parenting on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but in reading this and in seeing how they really worked with her on it, I would say that Lisa and Harry are good parents. Okay, let's move on to the Traitors, which is our last story of the day. And obviously, we're going to do our mini recap of the final episode and the reunion because that just aired last Thursday. So Alan ends up revealing that the final faithful killed by the Traitors was Mark, and he does this in front of the remaining players. So he makes Mark get into his coffin, which is his rightful place, he says, which is so weird. Can you imagine getting in a coffin and having it close? I feel like that is such like a, what's the word? Like, even if you're not claustrophobic, I feel like that would make anyone claustrophobic. So I'm just saying. Now, Rob basically partners with Maura for the rest of it and keeps telling her that they're going to win together and that um, he's got her back and that he can trust her. And then at the round table, Johnny ends up being voted out. Tara is then voted out by Eric, Rob, and Maura, despite the fact that she was really trying to convince Maura that Eric and Rob are traitors, and Maura just would not listen. It's really actually kind of sad and embarrassing a little bit for Maura, even though so cute. I just know that she is embarrassed because she said so, that she is just trusting Rob no matter what. Her brain cannot contemplate that he is a traitor, so no matter what anybody else tells her, she just continues to stick with him. So then they end up banishing Eric, and he looks absolutely shocked. He says to Maura and Rob that he actually really, really trusted them. And it's funny because when you get this close to the end, you must be thinking, like, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna win, and here's how I would win. And then to have that all taken away from you in like a second, that must really fuck with you, to be honest, right? Now, at the end, you either need to both be faithfuls or traitors to win together. So Rob used really great gameplay by getting Eric out first, which leaves him and Maura. And that way, he knows that Maura is a faithful and he is a traitor, and they can't win together, which means that he, as the traitor, takes the whole thing, which is what happened. And Maura is so embarrassed. Rob tells her that he's a faith, or sorry, Rob tells her that he's a traitor, and she absolutely cannot believe it. She's like, you pinky promised. I'm so embarrassed. I can't believe you did this to me. And eventually she does end up being like, I mean, yeah, I guess I would have done the same thing. So yeah, I guess that's fair. I get it though. Like you really think you're gonna win. You really think you've sided with this guy and that you're gonna take the whole thing home. And it turns out he's been lying to you this whole time. And he feels bad. He does. He's like, I didn't mean to embarrass you. I didn't mean to lie to you. But yeah, I have been a traitor this entire time, Maura. And yeah, he played it in the best way because if he had stuck with Eric, if he hadn't betrayed Eric, then they could have won together and then they would have had to split the money. But because he got rid of Eric and stuck with Maura, he got to keep the entire prize pot, right? He did it in such a brilliant way. He really won a game that, people keep going on about how great his gameplay was. It's a game where I'm not even sure that the rules make sense, to be quite frank. So to say that somebody is really good at this game when this game is just made up of a bunch of crazy rules, who knows? But it just shows that he is smart. He does listen. It requires so many different skills. It required him to be social when he's not normally social. It required him to always have his eyes open. It required him to lie. It required a lot of different skills and a lot of different what's the word? Like you almost need to have you need to be looking in 12 places at once. You need to always have your eyes open and always looking behind your back because so much is going on. So let's move on to the reunion. And we didn't get a ton out of this. It probably could have been longer, but we got what we got. So at the reunion, we find out that Rob has a girlfriend. Ooh la la. They've been together for 2 months. And Andy points out that at the exact time that you become so famous, this is the time you decide to settle down. He's like, yeah, I guess so. There's this whole thing that Candace tries to bring up where she's trying to imply that Rob was trying to fuck with the game somehow by telling Colton that he actually was a traitor. So Rob denies this. He's like, I never told Colton that I was a traitor. Colton also ends up defending his gameplay in general. We have Lisa Rinna saying to him, oh, why did you call me? Why did you say that you wanted to take me hostage? Why did you sort of use that terminology? And he defends absolutely everything that he says and does. He's like, well, think about the context of the terminology within the game, right? You said you wanted to slit my throat. So it's all well and good within the context of this game. Okay, fine. It's just interesting that at every turn he defended. He didn't really speak about Cassie, but Andy asked him about his reaction to the very negative fan reaction that he was getting. And he basically said that he went through a really hard time in his life. So did Cassie, sir. Okay. Dude, he went through a really hard time in his life. And, a lot of time has passed and he's changed and he has a family now. And he was really surprised to find out that the fandom were going to link his gameplay to the worst time in his life. And again, it just shows that he doesn't really understand because here's what really happened here. He did something terrible during a terrible period of his life. Yes. Then he went on and did other things, but nobody was really paying attention to him then. No one was paying attention to him on The Masked Singer or that Virgin dating show. So when he came to this, he thought, oh, you know what? So much time has passed. I've done all of these other things. I've redeemed myself. But no one has seen you since The Bachelor because no one has seen you do all of these other things. So the last thing that people remember about you is stalking your ex-girlfriend, right? I think it also really didn't help that he refused to talk about it in press. And I think he did play the game misogynistically, right? I do think that he was really coming for women in a really aggressive and angry way that seemed very unwarranted. And no, I don't think that has anything to do with Cassie. And yeah, it's probably unfair when people are saying things like, oh, because he's a stalker, that's why he's mean to women in this game. No, I wouldn't necessarily put those two things together. They are two very separate issues. But I do still feel like he played the game misogynistically. And I feel like if he was such a teddy bear, lover boy, this kind of guy that he tries to portray himself to be, he would have been liked in the castle. And I just feel like now, I'm not saying necessarily by the other players. Well, even that, right? He didn't really have any female friends in terms of the other players. I feel like that says something. And, to defend the gameplay, I mean, that's fine, right? I feel like everybody should defend their gameplay. But I still don't really understand why he wanted Tiffany out and why he didn't really apologize for that misstep after. It's just kind of confusing. So I don't really know. Colton, be gone. We don't really want to see you on our screens again. Also, remember that whole showdown that we feel like happened between Ron and Dorinda? So remember how Ron sort of came at Dorinda, was like, I don't want to tell you about my family or anything about my life, on the show. And we were like, whoa, that came up out of nowhere. What is that? Well, apparently they did cut out a lot of stuff that should have been there for context on the show, apparently where Dorinda was making a lot of inappropriate comments to him that he felt was a conscious bias. So I thought that we were going to get that at the reunion. And if we did, they cut it out. So I'm kind of pissed about that because it sort of leaves Ron in that position to the public that he got angry for no reason. And that just perpetuates stereotypes about Black people just getting angry, right? Angry Black people. So the show could have at least done them a solid and showed what the angry white lady said to him in order to get him so upset. So I'm kind of annoyed about that. And then our last little detail here that is both Beverly Hills related and Traitors related is about Lisa Rinna allegedly getting drugged at the Traitors premiere party. Now, we talked about this last week, and it got like very little traction because I thought when I read the article, it seemed like a source was coming forward with this information. It didn't seem like Lisa was even saying this, so I don't feel like anyone took it really seriously. But then Lisa Rinna has been like talking about it, right? You better believe she's going to talk about it. She's been doing press for her book, and she claims that she was drugged at the Traitors premiere party, claiming that fentanyl was found in her system. And the party was actually at the Abbey, which is a place that I feel like we sort of all know from Vanderpump Rules. Apparently, that's very common to happen at the Abbey. I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like the Abbey has come out saying that I don't know, they deny this report or deny any claims. I mean, I don't know. Lisa says in this article that she had fentanyl in her system. Yes, I'm not kidding. I had fentanyl, high levels of amphetamines and other things, but I can't talk a lot about it because we're still dealing with it. It was leaked and my team is dealing with it now. Now, a lot of people are saying that the leak came from Colton's team because the way that the original article was written was that like Colton was sort of there to save the day and protect her once he realized that something was off about her. But I don't know. She also wrote in this article, or said in this article, so many people that I know have had this happen at the Abbey, all my daughter's friends. I mean, this is not a first time thing. This is something that's gone on for years, she said. And I do think it needs to be a conversation. And I'm glad now that it's out and we'll deal with it. I just haven't had my own time to do that yet. Oh, here it is. So the Abbey has responded saying, Lisa's team shared concerns with us following her visit, and we immediately conducted a thorough internal review. When she became unwell, our security team assisted her and escorted her safely out of the venue. We pulled and reviewed all available surveillance footage from the time in question and interviewed staff on duty. We found no evidence of drink tampering or suspicious behavior towards her. We cannot speak to medical findings and do not want to speculate about toxicology results. We take any report of a guest feeling unwell or unsafe extremely seriously and follow established investigative protocols. Drink tampering is a crime. If any guest believes their drink has been compromised, we strongly encourage them to report it immediately, either to our management team so we can respond in real time or directly to law enforcement if they prefer. The Abbey has extensive surveillance coverage, trained security personnel, and ongoing drink safety measures in place. Guest safety remains our highest priority. Okay, reading that to me implies like a smidge of shadiness towards Lisa Rinna, saying like, we don't want to speculate about any toxicology reports. Like, has anyone seen the toxicology report? Just say, just say, just say. I don't know. Okay, you guys, that is the end of the episode for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Bravo Investigator. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/The Bravo Investigator podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Facebook group. And I love you, BBs. I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator podcast. For more content, head over to patreon.com/The Bravo Investigator podcast. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Bravo Investigator. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.